Do you think that it will continue to close its gap when it compared to the US GDP level?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly the reason why the growth, the speed itself will slow as the economy, the income per capita will approach closer to the level of advanced economies.
So welcome Akiko to our interview. I hope we will have an interesting discussion about China's economy, both in the short term and in the long term. And to get started, I think we have seen economic indicators improved. I want to know your perspective about will that kind of recovery be a sustainable one?
We have seen a sign of bottoming out. The growth drivers continue to be a service sector. This will continue as the household demand and income will recover. Public infrastructure growth will continue to support the investment. Although we do see that manufacturing investment might be slow because of the weak export demand for Chinese products, as well as property market investment may be slow while the correction in the market is ongoing.
Do you think that it will continue to close its gap when it compared to the US GDP level?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly the reason why the growth, the speed itself will slow as the economy, the income per capita will approach closer to the level of advanced economies. So we see that China will grow steadily in the coming decades. The growth driver will be productivity gains as well as capital accumulations.
I think when we talk about the long-term prospect of the Chinese economy, one topic cannot be missed. That is, will China follow Japan's path of kind of the lost decades or slower growth? So I want to know your take on this question and what's the difference between the current Chinese economy and the Japanese economy back in 1990s.
Our view currently is that China will not follow Japan's path, but we do understand where the concern comes from because there are some similarities. These two countries are very similar in terms of observing a declining population. The last observation is the balance sheet recession. This is what Japan had in the 1990s when it actually started. The balance sheet recession refers to the situation where, say, households, individuals, enterprises, when they have relatively higher debt, they focus on savings, trying to pay off their debt, but not so much on investing or consuming. But we see that, yes, there are similarities, but we see that these two countries are different. That's why we don't think China will follow Japan's path. The main difference we see is that China currently is still at the lower level of development as well as urbanization than that in Japan's in 1990s. So that should give a room for China to gain much more from new investment in terms of productivity. The second difference is that China so far managed to avoid the asset price collapse, while Japan then was suffering so much from the declining property prices as well as other asset prices.
With that differences, what kind of measures should China do further to bring that kind of potential when it comes to like urbanization and other factors you mentioned into full play so that the economy can grow healthily going forward?
Yeah, that's a very good question because yes, we don't see that China will follow Japan's path at this time, but of course there is a risk of that happening if China is a bit slow in managing and solving the issues coming from housing and also debt problems. And in the long run, the demographic transition will be happening and China will have to respond to it. The main issue may be the declining labor force in China. We have been suggesting a few policy actions that can be taken. They would include things like raising a retirement age or increasing the female participation rate to the labor market. Also, what is important, particularly for, let's say, young workers, creating a new job in a high-skilled service sector jobs so the young workers out of college can find a job more easily.
We've got an interesting discussion about China's economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.